Thank you, Stairs. I am Liam Harrison / Madbird. I am joined as always, as of recently, not always, but as of recently, I'm joined by Matt Dunlop in the box here at Brands Hatch, just outside Longfield in the United Kingdom. How are you, Matty?
I'm fantastic, and it's good to have everyone's company if you're joining us wherever you are around the world. Welcome to the broadcast, Apex Rear Wing. This is season 9, round number 4. I think I got that number right. We have the Brands Hatch GP circuit. Yes, tick in the box for me. First come off the rank, and I love that sentence. So, Brands Hatch GP circuit is arguably one of the most classic British racing circuits, bar none, in the history of automobile racing in the United Kingdom. And I'd say you'd probably agree with me there, wouldn't you, Madbird?
Yeah, it's pretty iconic. It's one of those tracks that it seems to work its way into every single discipline of motorsport at some stage. Formula 1 raced around here, as terrifying as that might be to think about. Formula 3, of course, BTCC, which we are here with tonight, and anything and everything. GT3 cars still go around here. But at the moment, with our BTCC championship, here are our points. So Ziras leading by 11 points over Berto after a solid round last time out at Alton Park. Berto ahead of Sam Smith by a much more significant, about 16 points there with Resist. Still finding his feet a little bit in these cars with 43 points. Brenton Foley snipping at his heels. He's yet to find a really good result in that BMW, 41 points. Goofball Antics and Roadhog close together down in 6th and 7th. Peace in 17 points. Netherelmian with 14 points. And Greg Turra climbing ever higher in that Ovlov with 12 points down in 10th place. So looks like it's all to play for at the top there still. Berto looking very strong at the moment in the practice session, but you can never really count out Ziras.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen all throughout this season that Berto's single lap pace in terms of practice and qualifying has been absolutely phenomenal, and he's been normally at the top, if not very close to the top of all these session timesheets. He's currently leading this practice session with about 10 minutes to go by 0.08 of a second over Ziras. So the two are very evenly matched, and the margin between the top 6 drivers is a second. So it's relatively close at the front as well. And I'd hazard a guess this early and say Berto's probably going to get the pole position as well. And the points race at the front has also been very, very close for the most part. Berto being tripped up by, for him in particular, a bit of a lackluster result in the second race at Snetterton, where he finished 5th, which doesn't sound too bad, but it was his lowest finish of the season so far, given that all of his other race finishes have been on the podium. So he's now found himself with a deficit of 11 points to Ziras, so he's going to need every pole position and every good position on track during the race that he can get.
Yeah, he started on pole, as you said, at Snetterton, but he didn't get a very good start and allowed Ziras to get the jump ahead of him. So let's see if he's been... I know he's been doing a lot of practice this week. He said a lot more practice than he has for previous rounds, so we'll have to see if he manages a better result from his start tonight. We do have a couple of runners new to the series, or at least they may look a little bit new. At the moment, we have got, finally, after a couple of rounds, Greg Turra is into his newly liveried Ovlov, which just looks absolutely fantastic. I can't think of any other words to describe it. The Ovlov Racing Volvo there of Greg Turra, all decked out in Soviet-style livery. Are you a fan, Matty?
I'm a huge fan. It's fantastic. I can't get enough of it, honestly. And it's great because he's up in 3rd position at the moment. Like everyone who's been watching these last few broadcasts know that I'm the president of the Greg Turra fan club, because I was hanging out for him to get that first points finish, and he got 2 on the trot, 2 5th place finishes, which has been great, and it's put him up to 10th in the points. And now he's sitting in 3rd in this practice session. So either he's had a lot of practice, or he's very familiar with Brands Hatch, or a bit of both. So it's good to see him doing well.
Yeah, Brands is one of those tracks that pretty much anyone that does any amount of sim racing was probably raced at some stage. It's vanilla in most sim races, in particular Automobilista, which we are in tonight. Down in 7th at the moment, we've got Lewis Wedding, who is... at the moment, he's in a second Volvo, that Repsol liveried Volvo that we saw Greg in previously. Yeah. He is currently... This is his first race with us tonight, so he's actually tried out a lot of cars. He went through the Datsun and the Audi and now the Volvo, so just having a look to see what he feels comfortable in before the race start. He's only got 6 minutes to go, so hopefully he's come to something of a decision. We have got Tyrrell down in 14th place, now in his still in his Datsun from last week, but now with his Jeff Vader Racing livery on it, courtesy of Roadhog, so looking very good there. And currently in the pits, in 15th, we have Benjamin Rhodes, Rhodey, in the Plus Fitness Racing BMW, who hasn't been able to join us due to conflicts with Automobilista Australia the last couple of weeks, but he is here tonight. So field of 15 runners tonight, Matty.
Yeah, great field. I think it's the biggest field we've seen so far in Apex Rear Wing Season 9, as Rhodey's now pulling out of the pits, trying to get a couple more lap times in the last 5 minutes of this session. He's currently about 6.1 seconds off the lead, and he's 2.3 seconds off Tyrrell, who is ahead of him in 14th. So he's got a bit of work to do to get himself up in those competitive qualifying positions, but with a little bit of practice, I'm sure he'll be able to get the track nailed. But he is in a very tricky car to learn. This BMW rear-wheel drive has been very tricky in the hands of some of these other drivers, such as Tyrrell, who gave it a go earlier in the season before switching to the Datsun. And we've also seen Brenton Foley struggling with it just a little bit while still performing pretty well. It is a fast car, but you have to know how to steer it.
Yeah, being rear-wheel drive, it's a little bit more temperamental than the four-wheel drive cars, but with that comes a bit more pace, and it seems to get a better start than the front-wheel drive cars. Doesn't get a better start than the four-wheel drive Audi, which is an absolute beast off the starting line. But Brenton, who's usually his driving style is all sideways all the time, has been struggling with that a little bit. So it'll be, hopefully Rhodey can come to grips with it. But it has been a little bit attritional. We've seen a few DNFs in each race so far. So even if he just keeps his head down and finishes the race, as we see him avoid the wall there, very well done, he might still pick up a handy point or two.
Yeah, we are paying points down to 10th position, I believe, in this series. Historically, we were paying points down to 15th, like MotoGP style, but we've now switched to a point system very similar to the one that was used by the British Touring Car Championship in 1996, the season that we are simulating. So, Brands Hatch, speaking of the DNFs from last time out, Snetterton, you have to keep in mind, is a very hard track. It's a very difficult track to crash at because you've got so much runoff, so much space between the track surface and the walls in most parts. And when you look at Brands Hatch, the walls are so much in tighter to the racing surface. You've also got a narrower track for the most part, and it's pretty bumpy in some parts and very undulating. It's a very drastic change from last time out at Snetterton. So I think these two races are going to be pretty attritional.
Yeah, especially this GP layout. The IndyCar layout, not so much, but the GP layout that goes up the hill and through the forest, it really feels like you're driving through a forest. The track closes in around you as you go off into the trees. And as you say, very, very little runoff. So a big accident coming out of Surtees or going down the Pilgrims Drop into Hawthorne Bend perhaps can possibly call the end to a driver's race. Rob Smith in the chat just saying, way to go, Sammy. Drive that French thing like it's a British car. Sam Smith's father, Rob, there, as always in the chat, probably with Sue as well. Good to have you along, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Sam's currently sitting in 5th, but looking quite racy tonight.
He's always racy, isn't he, Sam Smith? Not super strong in qualifying, we've noticed, but once it gets into the actual race, he knows how to put that thing onto the ground and get it through a pack of cars up to the front. What we've seen is it takes a bit of a shortcut straight into the fence there and onto his lid. So I think he might
have realised we were watching him. Perhaps decided to put on a bit of a show.
Maybe he's trying to get all the commentators cursing out of the way early on.
Maybe. If you're watching, and Brenton Foley doing the same, although he's landed it very nicely. Very well done. If you are watching, absolutely drop us a message, have a chat. We love to have a chat to all of you during the race, see what you think about the racing standards and the moves, all that sort of stuff, as we see Brenton Foley just dip a rear left tyre and pirouettes across the track, a full 360, and then lands it. Very well done by Brenton Foley there.
Good recovery there, actually. The momentum at that part of the track is going to want to take you into the fence immediately on the left-hand side, especially if you get a couple of wheels in the dirt and put the brakes on. So he was able to plant his foot, push his car back onto the track and get it nice and controlled. on that racing surface. So as long as he hasn't got anybody around him, if that happens during the race, I think he'll be pretty set in case he dips a wheel again. So that's another thing that the drivers have to be wary of. We've been looking at track cuts and very dangerous curbs. The curbs at this track look pretty flat. So it's just a matter of making sure, because you've got very strange entries into a few corners, you know, not straightforward braking zones. A few of them are a little bit curved, and especially on inclines, so that can mess with your braking performance as well. And that will have to change how a lot of these drivers approach their braking points. So making sure the car is straightened up on the black stuff is going to be crucial.
Yeah, especially through the forest section with a Sheens, apparently it's called. I've always just called it the kink, but it's sort of the track drops away from you as you have to turn in before you can see over the crest. As we're seeing Goofball Antics here just going through the hairpin. Sheens and Dingle Bell and Westfield Bend all through the forest. They're all sort of off camber, uphill over crest turns that they're not quite flat out, but you also don't brake for them. You have to lift just enough. It's a very, very odd combination of corners around Brands Hatch.
It's a very Nürburgring-esque section of track, isn't it? And you have to put a lot of faith. You have to put a lot of faith in your car and in your tyres as well to make sure you can get that grip and position your car on the racing line the whole time. But you have to get your braking and your turn-in point, especially for the Westfield Bend, absolutely spot on. Otherwise, you'll end up with your front bumper sitting in the grass like that gentleman who Goofball Antics just passed.
Goofball currently putting on a masterclass of going through the forest as he manages to... This is the kink. This is the one. Scares the hell out of me, but he manages to pull through it just fine, as expected from the Alfa Romeo driver. And we've actually just ticked over into 0 seconds with this practice session, so we'll be hopping into qualifying in just a few ticks.
So as it stands at the moment, we've got Berto leading the way, the 1 minute 30.659 with Ziras not too far behind him. Neither of those drivers were able to improve their times, so they're sitting in first and second. As it stands, Ziras is in the garage, and Berto, I don't think will be improving this time around. No, he will not be. So Resist, Greg Tarrant, Sam Smith, Goofball Antics, and pretty much everybody else have finished their laps. Practice times are set, and now we move into qualifying. So in the past, we've normally done a top 10 shootout sort of format for qualifying, but for this, we're going with something that more closely replicates how the British Touring Car Championship did it in 1996. So we'll have a 10-minute session where the cars are able to go out, send as many lap times as they please, and the fastest lap time will put you at the front of the grid.
That's it. So it's as you said, a bit different to what most of our drivers are used to. Quite a lot of them that have only raced with ARW or have mainly raced with ARW for the last few seasons probably haven't really done a straight qualifying session that much. It's always been shootouts, but we do have a standard qualifying session, 10 minutes. There is a point on offer for the driver that gets pole position, which Berto has currently taken twice out of the first 3 rounds, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right.
And the results of the qualifying determine the grid for race 1. Unlimited laps, although obviously limited by the 10-minute session, and unlimited tyre sets as well. So it's pretty simple. Just get out there and go as fast as you can. Try to set the best lap time you can. And if you're like me, then you never get anywhere close to the times you set in practice, and you get endlessly frustrated. But let's hope that doesn't happen to everybody else.
Cars are starting to peel out of the garages now. The red light is still on at the end of the pit lane, and Branson Foley is going to be the first cab off the rank as we go green, and he takes off to start this qualifying session with a big slide at the exit of the pit lane there. And he is looking to get some good lap times in without any traffic in front of him.
Yeah, had a soul crushing might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but he had a very sad moment last night in the Automobilista Australia Touring Car Championship, where a game freeze in the very last race of the season robbed him of victory and his 5th consecutive AMS Oz TCC Championship. I had a chat to him earlier. He said he's calmed down a little bit now. He can't get too greedy. He's got 4 out of the 5 Touring Car Championships tied up all for himself, so he can't be too upset. But he did say that he wants to focus on getting some very good results in Apex Rear Wing now, so I hope he's done a little bit of practice. He certainly seems keen to get out there and set some hot laps.
We've had a couple of other drivers who have been participating in some other sim racing. A 24-hour Le Mans event, I believe a couple of our drivers were involved in, as well as a couple of blokes from Automobilista Australia.
Yeah, Goofball Antics and Rob Dunt, or Berto, as he appears on your screens, along with Matt Schwass and Greg Nangle, I think, from Automobilista Australia, competed in a iRacing 24 Hours of Le Mans. Started out in third, I think, and then had a colossal accident, ended up down in 40-something, and then worked their way all the way back up to fifth overall in the LMP category, so very well done for them.
Yeah, fantastic result, and Goofball's going to be looking to get to carry that success, especially into the races this evening. He got his first podium of the season last time out at Snetterton, I believe it was. Got a third place in the first race, so he'll be looking to pick up a little bit of that form. He's been struggling to get comfortable with these cars as well, especially this Alfa Romeo here. Him being, of course, the only driver in the field driving the Alfa Romeo. And now that he's a little bit more comfortable with it, he's going to see if he can wrestle it around this Brands Hatch circuit to the best of his ability. It's 7 minutes 45 into this qualifying session. No one has put a lap time in thus far, but we can't be too far away now.
Yeah, Sam Smith looks like he's going to be the first to set a lap time. He's just heading down Pilgrim's Drop now, as you can see, about to swing it into Hawthorne Bend, which is a sort of tricky uphill corner. You don't need to brake anywhere near as much as you think you do because of the uphill nature of the corner. And then through Westfield Bend and down into Dingledell, which is just a hilarious name for a corner. And then through Sheens. Go! Oh, as he's caught it. That was a hairy moment there for the Peugeot. Dipped a tyre in the grass and got a colossal tank slapper, but he managed to hold on to it, and he doesn't look like he's lost too much time, with Brenton Foley still right up his chuff.
Yeah, he's still pressing on regardless, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do by the time he crosses the start-finish line through that final tricky Clark curve. It's a very strange racing line you have to take there. Across the line, it's a 1 minute 32.456 to get things started, immediately bested by Brenton Foley with a 1 minute 32, and Berto is up on top with a 1:30.5. That's the fastest time we've seen so far tonight.
Yep, that's better than his practice time. The other favourite, Ziras, has not actually set a time, so he may have had a track cut during his hot lap, and he's now stuck behind, well, not stuck behind, but he's now got the Ovlov Racing car of Greg Turra directly in front of him, so that's not going to be helping his speed any. Hope Ziras can find some clean air and he's off the track, so I reckon this might be a burner lap for Ziras to reset and go again the next time around.
Yeah, that's one of these things, the track limits and the track cuts that you have to get acquainted with, because of course if you have a track cut during a qualifying lap, it completely voids your lap time. So that's something you have to be wary of. They're a little bit more lenient in the race. I think you get 3 strikes on your track cuts, and then the 4th one earns you a drive-through penalty, as well as any subsequent track cuts after that. So get familiar with your white lines on your racing surface and make sure you stay within them. We've got a crash. Brenton Foley just spun around at the that bottom out, that kink there. I can't remember what the name of it is. Got to go through. There's a very extensive list of corner names. Dingledell. So we're just taking a look at a replay now. He's just dipped a couple of wheels in the grass. It's the exact same thing that we saw earlier on, but he has actually hit the fence this time around. So there would have been a little bit of damage as a result of that if it was the race, and now he's restarting his session from the pit lane. And that threw up a local yellow flag, so a few of the drivers may have had to sacrifice their laps there to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, it's the shootout format that we usually use is very much a safety sort of, it's a toss-up between speed and safety, but it's still almost the same in these longer qualifying sessions, because you still got to set a lap time. There's no point getting out there and doing blistering laps every lap if you cut the last corner and none of them count. So usually it's a good idea to put in a banker lap just to make sure that you've got one, and then you can start trying to build on it. But at the moment we're still waiting for Ziras and Lewis Wedding and Roadhog to actually set a lap time, so hopefully they're gonna get on it sooner rather than later. Berto, meanwhile, is still sitting pretty on top, with Greg Turra the closest man to him, 8 tenths or thereabouts behind.
Yeah, it's a big gap as Greg Turra falls off the track there into the marbles, which suggests that a few other drivers are going to start popping up and filling up the gap, namely a couple of those drivers who you mentioned who hadn't posted a time yet, such as Ziras. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there, of course, Berto is up on his current time through the first sector split. That's the second sector split, mind you. He's up 1/10 of a second, so not sure how much of that pace he'll be able to maintain through the third sector. We know this Renault corners really, really well, especially in comparison to the BMWs. So that can be a point of difference between himself and Ziras as he crosses the line. Let's see if he improves on his lap time.
He does.
And he does. It's a 1:30.346. That's insanely fast. Almost a second quicker than Greg Tara in second. But Ziras is up, and he's only just marginally quicker than Greg Tara. So the gap between Berto in first and Ziras in second is still 0.927 of a second.
Yeah, the best Ziras was able to do in practice was a 136 or 130.6, sorry, somewhere in there. Pretty close to what Berto was able to do, but Berto seems to have just found another gear, and that extra practice seems to be paying off. So
Ziras now only has a couple of attempts left because he's on an out lap. He went back to the pits and he pulled back out. So he hasn't got too much time to play with. Meanwhile, down in 8th place, we've got Decimage, who's just gone through the first sector split. He's up on his personal best time, but he's still got a bit of a ways to go to make up gaps at the front. He's got a gap of, in front of him, almost 0.8 of a second to Brenton Foley. So he'll have to put in blistering couple of second sectors to get up there in terms of that. The main thing he has to worry about is defending that 8th position from Nether, who is 0.3 down in 9th.
Yeah, who's out of position? Resist would usually, I'd expect Resist to be a little bit further up the field, probably up behind his brother Ziras, so maybe struggling in that Honda Accord. We've still got Lewis Wedding and Roadhog to set times. Neither of them are on the board yet, so they're going to want to pull their fingers out.
Yeah, I think Lewis Wedding's been struggling with the track limits as well. I've seen him dart off into the grass a couple of times. I don't know if it's voided his lap times. He's 1:09 through the second sector, which is about a second off the pace and some change that Berto was putting in. So I'd put him around the midfield once he gets across the finish line. If he's able to put together a pretty consistent third sector, we're just seeing him going through the final quarter now, and it's not going to be as fast as Berto by any stretch of the imagination, but he is 8th, so he's in the pack. He's got a time on the board. We're just waiting for Roadhog now to be the final driver to register a time, and he is currently heading down towards the final corner.
Yeah, he's coming down Clearways and just coming into Clark Curve as we speak. That Audi squatting down, that all-wheel drive helping it through the corners. It is a bit heavier and it's well and truly the slowest car out there, but sometimes all you need is a bit of grip, and he is still to set a lap time, so must have had another corner cut at some stage during that lap. Won't be good for him if he has to start from the very rear of the grid.
Just goes to show how tricky this track is, that even the car that can corner as well as the Audi is still able to get track cuts here and there. So he's only got one more chance to get this done now. We're under 1 minute to go for this qualifying session. Berto still leads the way. The gap at the front, Greg Tara has brought it down to just over half a second. So 1 minute and, no, that's not the right time. That's an old sector split. So I'm not sure what his lap time was, but he 1:30.9. So Ziras is about a third of a second off that. He's up 0.2 on his personal best, but he's still down on the pole position time thus far. So with 30 seconds to go, Ziras may come around for one more attempt after this, but we're not exactly sure if he's going to make the most of it.
Yep, so he's just coming down the start-finish straight now and crossing the line. He improves past Greg Tara up into second place, still half a second shy of Berto though. That's a gauntlet well and truly thrown, and Ziras will not be completing another lap. He's gone very deep on the first corner, so destroyed his last flying lap before it really began. Berto is not going to start another flying lap, but at the moment it doesn't look like he needs to. He crosses the line and does not improve his time, but he is still sitting up there looking like he's going to take a third pole position point with a 1:30.346. Who else have we got out on track still setting a time? We've got Sam Smith down in 6th, Lewis Wedding down in 7th are both still out there, as is Decimage down in 9th. And Roadhog finally, Sam having a very big accident, just as his dad says in the chat, love the SO Sammy, put a tiger in your tank. Roadhog finally set a lap time which was good enough for 12th. And I think that might be it. So Lewis Wedding and Decimage are the only two men out on track at the moment. Lewis Wedding just coming through, I think that was Sheens. Oh no, sorry, that was Westfield Bend heading on down towards Sheens now. And Samaj is definitely not going to be. He's already at 1 minute and 25 seconds before the last corner, so he will not be setting a hot lap. Lewis Wedding currently a 10th down on his personal best, so at the moment he will not be improving unless he gains an incredible amount of time coming through this last corner. He needs 0.3 of a second to improve his position up into 6th ahead of Sam. Can he do it? I don't think he can. That Ovlov straining all the way to the line, and he can't. Does not improve. So
he got pretty close
to his PB.
Yeah, almost 0.5 of a second was the margin between himself and himself, I should say. But he wasn't able to improve, and that wouldn't have got him too much further up the leaderboard with Sam Smith over 1/3 of a second ahead of him there. So, Berto takes pole position for race 1 here at Brands Hatch, with Ziras lining up next to him on the front row.
Absolutely, and Greg Turra surprising everybody. Well, I don't know if it's surprising, but he's starting from the second row alongside Goofball Antics, so it's an all-G second row of the grid.
I almost wonder if it's more beneficial to start from third here. It probably sounds a little bit silly because you're not on the front row, but it's a very long right-hand corner, and you have to be very careful. You have to tiptoe through it, especially when you've got a whole field of cars around you at the start of the race. So Greg Turra may take that opportunity to just sit behind Berto and follow him up through that corner and maybe make his way into second.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. We've got a 10-minute warm-up session here, which is as good a time as any for me to say code 2. Let's have a little break, and we'll see you on the other side of these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Here we are, approaching the hay plains. We've got Evie, or Goofball Antics is driving. It's happening. And on the other side there is Mad Bird. It's me. And Stairs here, repping in the back seat. Behind us. Oh, let's not worry about that magazine. we got Resist and Ziras in the front there. Resist driving. How have you felt about the trip so far, Heath?
It's been good. It's a bit of an early start. It's nice and cool in here, and that's all that matters. Good company.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot day today, isn't it, Mad Bird?
Feels weird being a passenger in my own car.
We're 6 hours in, about 7 hours to go. See you in Bathurst.
Oh my goodness! How are you feeling after that turn there, Heath? Or that not turn, but that truck turning?
Truck turn.
Yeah, that looked like it unsettled you slightly.
Are there any cucumbers back there, Stairs? Because that'd be the only thing cooler than me right now.
Oh, he's done it.
This coke's pretty cool.
What an absolute legend. So we're on the way to West Wyalong. We've got assorted snacks with our walkie-talkie, and we don't have a rubbish bag. Do we, Stairs?
No.
I appreciate it.
We don't have a rubbish bag. That was an oversight.
So the marching order is the same as before. I believe Phil is still driving in the other car.
Yep.
We're about 400 k's now from Bathurst, and it's all looking very exciting. I'm very keen, and I'm really happy that Alistair has these very loud walkie-talkies. Fuck.
Do you want to check in with the other cars, see if they've got anything to say to the
Oh my gosh.
Matt Car to Fabmobile, do you read?
What?
Take that as a yes. Do you have a question for them?
How's your drive going?
Oh, how's the drive going? Everything going well on your part?
Yep, it sure is the countryside.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there.
Good talk.
Good talk. Anyway, good talking to you.
So that's about it. We're on our way, and we'll be in Bathurst this evening. I'm very excited to stretch my legs. Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to Apex Rear Wing Season 9, Round 4, here from the Brands Hatch GP circuit. We have finished qualifying, so we are waiting for Race 1 to kick off. We have our entrance of Resist and Zarlinger in the Black Flag Industries Racing Honda Accords, Goofball Antics in the Scuderia Pro Anomaly with Berto and the TBA Inc., Ziras in the ZNB Racing BMW, another Romian in the Nissan Primera Outworld Racing Team, Sam Smith, Tinshed Racing, SO Put a Tiger in Your Tank, Tyrrell in the Jeff Vader Racing BMW, although it's a Datsun now, Bagsy in the Poker Racing Sweat car, and Desamaj, Roadhog and Brenton Foley, and Greg Turra in the Ovlov Racing car, and Rody in the Plus Fitness Racing BMW. And in addition tonight, we have got Lewis Wedding in a second Volvo. So the beautifully, resplendently liveried Repsol Volvo that I was a big fan of a couple of races ago. There it is, trundling past the safety truck and going back to the pits.
So in case you're wondering what's happening here, folks, we're just lining up for a practice start. This isn't the start of the race, just letting the drivers get the last minute jitters out of the system and get comfortable with starting a race and racing in that initial lap 1 pack. And also just getting in the last minute bit of practice in, especially for a few of these drivers who are a little bit less experienced around here. As we see a bit of a push and shove there between Greg Turra and Goofball into turn 1. Everyone stays on the track this time around, which is always good to see, especially through this tricky Paddock Hill bend.
Yeah, it sort of helps to get all the jitters out of the way before the for real start. As you said, sort of get all the sillies done, and then that way when we do the real start, everyone sort of focuses up. But whether that actually happens remains to be seen. Looks like a remarkably clean start so far. This practice one. Oh, Zarlinger and Bagsy having a little touch, but nothing to write home about.
Looks like Greg Turra is currently leading the time board with a 2 minute 13.25, which is a blistering
time.
I'm trying to think, it's a blistering 43 seconds slower than the pole position time or thereabouts. So he's on the right track, I like to think. We're just looking at a replay here of some of the slow motion action that you'll be looking forward to seeing for the rest of this race. Going to turn 1. No, this is turn 2, actually. This is Paddock Hill Bend.
Oh.
And this is Zarlinger losing his rear bumper. It is.
It's every round we seem to have a slow motion replay of a bumper going flying. I think usually it's a Honda Accord. Maybe their models have more detachable bumpers than most, but there it is. Our man Stairs in the directing chair, handling all the camera angles and stuff that you are seeing with your eyes. So excellent, good work to him. Excellent, good work. A complete unnecessary. What is happening? We've got Rody and Zarlinger having an accident at the last corner. Let's see if we can catch a replay of that.
Yeah, I think Zarlinger just speared off the track on his own accord there. You see what I did there? And he comes back on the track now and just catches Rody by surprise, who just piles right into the back of him and nearly tips over onto his roof. We've seen a lot of drivers almost flip cars this season. We're yet to see one actually go over in their roof during a race. And
that's no, in the first race, which you weren't actually here for, so explains why you weren't aware of it. Ziras and Resist both ended up on their roofs for a brief period of time. Speaking of being on something, Greg Turra is currently all over the back of that Picaro Sweat racing car. Berto is off the track having a look at that that Mitsubishi Hilux. No, Toyota Hilux. Who makes a Hilux? Help me.
yeah, Toyota.
Yeah, okay. I was doubting myself. Very good.
You being right there, Madbird.
Fantastic. We've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in this warm-up session. Matty, what are your predictions for the race?
Alrighty, my predictions for the race. I reckon in terms of the race win, it will be Berto. He'll get the win in race 1. I think he'll be able to hold Ziras off for the rest of this race, and I think Greg Turra is going to get a maiden podium.
Oh, that's a fair call. He's starting from third place, so he's obviously got some pace in that Ovlov, that resplendent Ovlov. I'm gonna say Ziras for the win. I think he's gonna have a good start, and then as we've seen especially at Snetterton last week, Berto seems to be good at chasing, but he also comes undone a little bit and tends to have some accidents while doing so. So I reckon Ziras to take the lead off the line, and then Berto to maybe struggle a little bit to reel him back in. But I can't wait for both of our predictions to be absolutely wrong.
You never know. We've had quite a bit of chaos in the last few rounds, especially in the reverse grid races. So I'm not even going to try and make an accurate prediction for that one. But that's a different kettle of fish. That's future us problem. We've got a race to deal with now already. Race 1 coming up in a few minutes' time. It will be... I started that sentence before I actually realised how many laps we have in the race. So let me just look through now. It is a 16-lap race.
It is.
So thank you very much for the assistance there from our producer Stairs. 16-lap race. In the event of a red flag or a technical issue, if we get to 12 laps, the race will be declared. No, that's not what I'm looking at. If we get to 12 laps, it means every driver is classified. I think that's what it is. Either of those two are correct. I'm going to hand it over to Mad.
So yeah, so you need to complete 75% of the race in order to be classified. So 12 laps is that 75%. So although the second race is a reverse grid race, reverse grid from the positions finished in the first race, if you don't actually classify, if you do 2 laps and then go, nah, you know what, I just want to start on pole for the second race and pull over by the side of the road, then guess what, you're starting from the back anyway because you didn't classify. So although we don't recommend it, I guess technically they could get to 12 laps and then pull over by the side of the track, but we don't recommend that in any way, shape or form. And you need to actually finish those 12 laps in order to get any points. So if everyone crashes out except for you and you go, well, you know, easy race win and pull over by the side of the track, but it isn't lap 12, then guess what? Everybody has DNF'd, and what a delightful experience that would be to commentate that particular race.
Oh, absolutely. I just noticed that Sam Smith didn't seem to be knocking over too many trackside signage items.
Oh, I hope he's all right.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's normally his tradition for him in every warm-up session to knock over all the advertising boardings and the corner markers. But I don't know if we have corner markers here at Brands Hatch, so that may have made his job a little bit easier. We're just getting ready to grid up now. You can get our live timing and results at arwleague.liveraces.com. And you can always follow us on our social media as well. Facebook at Apex Rear Wing is a great place to catch up with us. Look at old highlights and live stream links and all that good stuff. And don't forget, you can always donate to our Patreon as well. And also stay tuned next week. So we race every Wednesday at this rate so far. And next Wednesday, the 1st of July, at around about the same time, we'll be racing at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. The full layout as opposed to the international layout that we used earlier in the season. So we have oodles and oodles of great British touring car racing on offer for you, ladies and gentlemen, watching wherever you may be. And one of those races is about to start. It is race 1 of round 4. 16 laps, roughly 62.7 kilometres. It's a mostly clockwise track with 6 right turns and 3 lefts. The last winner at the last time we visited this track, it was Goofball Antics, who currently sits in the Alfa Romeo in 4th, who won. So we'll see if we can carry that form up and make his way possibly onto the podium as well.
That's it. So the revs are rising as they begin their processional lap. Got T-Bents 3000 in the chat just saying, hi there boys. Hello there T-Bents, be you boy, girl or other. We are here for round 4 of Apex Rear Wing Season 9. Berto leading us off. He did get pole position in the end and took that pole position point, the 3rd one for this season for that particular gentleman. He will be starting on pole. Behind him, we have got Ziras in the Z&B Racing BMW. Some very good results from him, as we have come to expect. But will he be able to get past Berto in the early stages? Behind him, starting from 3rd, a surprise 3rd place sitter is Greg Turra in the Ovlov Racing Volvo. Only classified his first ARW race a couple of races ago, and he's already starting on the 2nd row of the grid in a race. So a meteoric rise for Greg Turra. Goofball Antics in one of his many beloved Alphas, starting from 4th place. Behind him is Resist, who's actually must have had a must have had a accident somewhere, and he's had to catch up, or possibly he did have a wheel issue last week at the start of the race, which robbed him of a lot of positions in the race itself. So we can only hope that that hasn't happened this time, and that it was just a spin or something perhaps. Behind him we have Sam Smith in the Peugeot, who has got a couple of podiums under his belt, but no race wins yet. He does have the chops, but he just hasn't been able to pull it together thus far. His mum and dad, Sue and Rob, as always, probably cheering him on in the comments. Lewis Wedding joining us for his first race in this season in the Repsol Racing Volvo. Hasn't actually raced with us for a couple of seasons, but he is definitely no slouch in the racing chair, so expect him to climb up the field. Zarlinger in the Black Flag Industries Racing Honda Accord. It's behind him with Brenton Foley, warming his brakes and tyres very, very significantly in the BBF Racing BMW. Diesamaj in the Peniston Oils Racing Datsun in 10th place. Netherelmian in the Nissan Primera in 11th. Roadhog in 12th, but that Audi is a lightning start, so expect that one to climb up. Josh Bagsy in the Poker Racing Sweat for his second race night of the season. Tyrrell in his new Datsun, starting from 14th. And Rody in his newly liveried Plus Fitness Racing BMW, starting at the rear of the grid. Bagsy is very well tilted towards the inside there, as we are all lined up and ready to go. So the lights are on. The lights are out and away we go. So we've got a very, very good start for Ziras. Whole shot around the outside of Berto. Coming into turn one, Berto just bogged right down, and he's got Goofball Antics and Greg Tara all over the back of him as they come through turn one. Ziras already a lead of a few car lengths, and Goofball Antics defending against Greg Tara into the hairpin, but looks like it's all tidy behind. A little bit of a tussle between Resist and Sam Smith, and Lewis Wedding buying into it as well, Matty.
Yeah, fantastic start there from Ziras. He's already got a gap of 2 seconds over Berto in second place. So Berto in that Renault has a lot of work to do if he wants to catch up and stick to the back bumper of that BMW up in front of him. Meanwhile, the back further behind them, Goofball Antics has made his way onto the podium spots, but he's got a train of cars building behind him with Greg Tara and Resist sticking to him like glue. In fact, Greg Tara is going to try and make a pass here on the run up the hill. There's maybe a little bit of contact there. He backs out of it at the last minute, and Goofball Antics maintains a position around the outside. He may have another peak here. No, it's a very tricky part of the track here to pass, so he might just bide his time and wait a little bit, I think.
It looks like he was going to have a go down into the inside of Sheens there, but thought better of it. Oh, sorry, not Sheens, Dingledell, but thought better of it. This entire section through the forest is a bit of a nightmare to try to pass through. Best opportunity is usually either Paddock Hill Bend, turn 1, or Druids, which is the hairpin and turn 3, respectively. So, pretty clean so far on this first lap, but at the front, Berto just 1.4 seconds behind Ziras as they complete the first lap. So he will be absolutely spitting chunks in that helmet.
Lewis Wedding back in 7th position has also been swarming all over the back of Sam Smith, so we could see a very hot little battle forming between those two, and even with Brenton Foley, who sits behind in 8th position. So keep an eye on those drivers as well. I certainly will, and I'll keep you posted in case there's any developments there. But they're still sitting single file at the moment. Big lockups throughout the field, though, I'm starting to notice, especially at Graham Hill Bend at the bottom of the hill as they make the run back up the Indy circuit back straight. So we've got a car off the track at the moment at that very corner, and that was Zarlinger, who's dropped all the way to 13th. There's still Tyrrell and Rody behind him by a fair whack, but that's still a very big deficit there, and he may have lost out on a couple of points. He's got some work to do.
He does. Brenton Foley, however, has also got some work to do. He's all over the back of Lewis Wedding. These two guys have raced together a lot in Automobilista Australia, not so much in Apex Rear Wing, but Foley just looks like he's got a bit more pace than the Volvo at this stage, but just can't find the opportunity to make the position stick. He thinks about it, going through the forest, but thinks better of it indeed as they come through Sheens. No way through at Sterling's, as he actually goes off the track a little bit, but manages to maintain his position. So Goofball Antics has, since taking that third place, hasn't had a moment where he hasn't had to look in his rearview mirrors. He's got the Ovlov Racing Volvo of Greg Tara all over the back of him. He's going to try to go around the outside at turn 1. That's never going to work, is it?
Oh, they're
He
side by
tries.
side. It could work. This is
And it
fantastic
looks-
racing. Greg Turra's got a nose up ahead. I don't think he'll be able to maintain that line into Druids. No, he'll have to concede that back to Goofball Antics, but he's still side by side. He's going to have to run into Graham Hill Bend. This is a phenomenal driving from Greg Turra. He's got the line. He's got the corner to the left-hand bend. Oh, a bit of a slide there and a slight corner cut, but he's through. Greg Turra has made that stick. That's fantastic racing.
That is excellent. Greg almost cut off Goofball Antics' nose going into Graham Hill Bend to take that racing line, but it was all clean. Sam Smith off the track behind them, and Resist is hungry for that 4th position. He doesn't appear to be having any wheel issues this week, thank God. So he is all over the back of Goofball Antics, and he wants up on that podium.
Touch wood. Hopefully nothing goes wrong with that steering wheel setup that he's got. He's having a peek up the inside of Goofball Antics. Goofball looks like he's struggling now. He had the first lap, the single lap qualifying pace, but he looks to be falling off a little bit in the race, and he's under threat here from Resist, who looks to be capturing 4th pretty soon, with Sam Smith swarming all over the back as well. Resist is really getting all over the back of Goofball right now.
He is. It's still not too far behind to the, or too far ahead, sorry, to the Volvo of Greg Turra. He hasn't escaped completely from this battle by any means. This is still at the, oh no, Resist just dips a tyre on the outside of the last corner and noses directly into the wall of the start-finish straight. That is going to be a bent suspension arm, I would expect, at the very least. So that is a damn shame for Resist, who was looking very good there for challenging for a podium position. So we've just got a replay here. As you can see, just dips his rear left tyre in the grass, and it just spits the car across the track. That is very unlucky for the Black Flag Industries driver.
Meanwhile, back at the front, Berto has caught up to the back of Ziras at rapid pace. The gap is about half a second, but you can clearly see both of these cars in shot right now. Berto, we know, is stronger from the corners, and we've got a lot of long, fast corners here at Brands Hatch, so that's playing into his strengths a little bit. That BMW has slightly more power on the straights, but he's very slidey, especially through some of these corners where you have the elevation change that robs you of grip as you're trying to get through there. So Berto's car being a lot more planted than we've seen in the last few races, and this battle is really starting to heat up at the front.
It is, yeah. Oh, Ziras backs it in through Sheen's corner, but manages to keep it all on the black stuff, so very well done to him. As you can see, the Renault is just so much more planted going through the corners. BMW is basically having to slide through every corner to make it in a timely fashion, but Ziras is very good at defending. Snetterton showed that, although Snetterton did have those 2 massive straights for him to stretch that BMW's legs on. Doesn't have that luxury here, so he's going to have to drive with one eye on his rearview mirror and both his hands on the steering wheel in order to hang on to that first position. Berto's all over the back of him as they come into the hairpin, but Ziras cuts off that particular avenue of overtaking.
Yeah, Berto's looking to have a peek as we see back down in 4th position, the battle for 4th. Sam Smith's having a look on the inside of Goofball Antics. These two are getting very, very close with not a huge amount that seems to be happening at the moment. Goofball is still up at the front. Sam Smith is trying to pull side by side as they come out of Graham Hill Bend. He's going to try and get a little bit of a draft on the run up the hill through the forest, but they're going to stay line astern as it is. But this battle is still very, very close between these two for 4th, as well as for 1st and 2nd. Sam Smith is now ducking out around the outside, having another peek once again, but he can't get anything done. Goofball Antics is defending like his life depends on it, and he's got the inside line here. Oh, we have a look up the front, and Berto's having a look at Ziras through Dingle-Dell,
Westfield.
I think that is, through Westfield. So they're making their way through Dingle-Dell now, and they're almost still side by side. But Ziras marginally has position, and Berto ducks in behind as they go through Sheens.
Yeah, that was very, very good racing between the two of them. Berto just with a better run off of Surtees by the looks of it, was able to get up alongside coming out of Hawthorne Bend. Just shows how much more grip and just how much more stable that Renault is. Even if the BMW seems to be able to power away just a little bit, it's definitely, this is a track that's not going to favour one or the other particularly much. Renault tucked right up underneath the rear wing of the BMW and trying to go for the inside down the first corner. Oh, and Berto gets all out of shape. Taps the back of Ziras, I think, as they entered the corner and just slid sideways a little bit. Lost a bit of time, but he's already catching up. We've got a replay of it. No, we don't. We've got live footage. Here we
While
go.
that's happening, Yeah, we're just taking a look at the replay now. There's a big moment there from Berto. Almost collected Ziras in the process, but while that was happening, Sam Smith has made his way past Goofball Antics at the Druids hairpin and is now up into 4th place.
Yeah, he's not leaving Goofball Antics in the dust as we see the move happen. Goofball Antics well on the outside of the hairpin there as they go through Graham Hill Bend. Resist has managed to get back up into 6th place. He's about 6 seconds or so behind the battle ahead of Goofball Antics and Sam Smith. So he's got a bit of catching up to do. But if these two are going to be battling, and Sam Smith straight off the track, up at the in the forest section, and he's going to rejoin well and truly behind. So all that good work by Sam Smith. Maybe that Tiger in the tank was a little bit too vicious because that car just rattled itself directly off the track and into the runoff, coming through, I think, Westfield Bend, just straight off and into the runoff area. So Sam Smith now 2.3 seconds with it all to do.
I saw that happen a couple of times throughout practice and qualifying as well for Sam Smith. So I'm almost wondering if that Peugeot is having understeer issues around this Brands Hatch circuit. That's narrowed the gap for Resist down to 3.7 seconds, and Resist can see Sam Smith up ahead now. So we're just having a look at the Berto, having a look up the inside of Ziras, gives him a little bit of a shove and pushes him wide. Ziras is going to try and reclaim that around the outside, and Berto looks to have slowed down to let that pass back through.
Yeah, that would have been, I don't think Berto would have been particularly happy with that overtake. That was a bit of a dive. Went straight into the back of Ziras, so he wouldn't have wanted to make the position that way. So hands it back, and now it's game on once again, as we've got a replay here of Lewis Wedding spinning out, coming around the last corner, I think, or is this the first corner? First corner. They look pretty similar, so that's how Lewis Wedding ended up down in 9th place. So not a great start for that man. Oh, and not a good start not a good middle of the race, I guess, for Berto, as he gets out of shape on the runoff, going through the forest, and he's lost quite a bit of time to Ziras there. He's about 1.6 seconds behind now, where he was only 10th. So not good for Berto, to state the obvious.
That takes a little bit of pressure off Ziras as well, because Ziras, we know, is normally rock solid, but once he gets a car in his rearview mirror, he may be susceptible to making a couple of mistakes here and there. But now that he's got a gap of about 1.5 seconds back to Berto there, he's got a little bit of that pressure being eased, and he's going to start eking out faster and faster laps, I think, as we see this race goes on. Sam Smith has spun back into 6th position as it stands at the moment. He was up in P5, but he's losing spots.
Oh, that's going to go down more. Yep. Down to 9th now, as he had to wait for that little battle of Decimage, Roadhog and Lewis Wedding to go past. And that is a damn shame. So same thing we saw from Resist, just dips a tyre, trying to use all the track he can by the looks of it, and dips a tyre in the runoff on the left-hand side at the last corner, and luckily didn't go into the wall, but did spin the car around. So it's a shame for Sam Smith. That Tiger getting angrier and angrier.
It almost looked like he got unsettled off the rumble strip on the apex of the corner that you just come through on the inside of the track. So a little bit of a chain reaction there potentially for that Peugeot. So that's something the driver's going to have to be wary of now as well. So
we've got Decimage having a good little tussle for that 7th place. Well, now it's 6th place since Sam Smith had that accident with Lewis Wedding and Roadhog. Lewis Wedding just made the position over Roadhog, who had a terrible run off of Surtees corner. I think he got well over on the curb.
He did, yeah, he got into the grass.
Decimage up 4 positions from his start, so very solid race for him if he can just keep his nose clean for the remaining 8 laps of the race. We're halfway through, Matty.
Yeah, that's half the battle, isn't it? Trying to just keep your nose clean and just keep plugging away with consistent laps and staying out of trouble is often a great way to take home a great haul of points, especially if you're starting in the midfield or towards the back, where you may be stuck in traffic that is far from ideal. So in terms of the front half of the pack at the moment, it seems to have thinned out a little bit, with a few gaps opening up between the first 5-6 cars. Decimage leading Lewis Wedding is the closest battle we have near the front, with Sam Smith now tacking onto the back of that battle pack. And we're just seeing a little bit further down now, we've got Josh Bagsy sitting in 11th position, trying to get up in front of Brenton Foley. There's about 1.7 seconds of gap at the front there, and that would encourage Brenton Foley to keep pushing. We just had something happening.
Accident, sorry, at turn 1. I'm not sure who it was.
It was
Rhodey and Sam Smith came unstuck. I'm not sure. Rhodey was definitely a lapped runner. I'm not sure if he got in the way, or if Sam maybe tried for a bit of an overzealous overtake. But either way, here we got the replay here. Oh, and it looks like Rody did it all by himself, got all out of shape, and then switched back on the racing line, which put him directly into the path of Sam Smith. Sam Smith, luckily, got away pretty unscathed, but Rody is still running, but that car looks very, very, very hurt as it comes through Graham Hill Bend.
Yeah, that's a massive impact. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's a bit of damage on that car, so he may even have to pull it in and retire it before he can be classified. Yeah, as I'm just watching him now, he's just trundling really slowly around the second half of the circuit, and he looks to be pulling a little bit, so you'll have to pull in with suspension damage, I'd say.
Yeah, Sam Smith did his level best to stay out of that. He kind of tried to hedge his bets. He was like, I'll wait and see what happens here, and then probably thought, he's spinning around off to the right, and then Rody's car just completely exceeded expectations by flinging itself to the left and directly into Sam Smith's car. But luckily, no one's out of the race as yet. And at the front, speaking of racing, we've got Ziras only 0.2 of a second ahead of Berto, so Berto's gained up all that time that he lost.
So either Ziras has made a mistake that we've missed out on, or Berto has just been lickety-split quick trying to catch up to the back of that car. And that second one wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, because that Renault is really hooked up in these corners, and he's able to pull a deficit back faster than you can say the word deficit on most cases rather than not. So he's currently got a gap that's really academic at this point, because he's just touching the rear bumper of Ziras as they go through Dingledale now and make their way towards Sheens. Or maybe that's the other way around. I think they're making their way through Dingledale now, and this is the Sheens kink that Mad Bird definitely, you said you fear as a driver. And
I'm terrified of it.
And with good reason. It's a really scary bit of curve there, and you've got to sort of hit it at a high speed and keep it stable as you're going through. And now Berto's trying to set himself up around the outside of Ziras into the final corner. He's got a little bit of an edge there, but he's not going to be able to hold on to that. Ziras will stick into first place for the time being. But Berto will probably have a pretty good run off that final corner and may be able to pick up some pace on the main straight.
Yeah, he's going to have a go down into the first turn. Doesn't get quite up alongside and gets a little bit out of shape, but manages to hang on to the back of the BMW as they come through and into the Druids hairpin. Berto all over the back of him, but Ziras just able to place that BMW perfectly to block all the avenues of overtaking. We've seen that Berto seems to be quite strong coming down Pilgrim's Drop towards Hawthorne Bend, the uphill corner that heads into the forest. So we'll see if he manages to get a decent exit off this corner here. And it looks like he did. They both dip tyres in the grass, actually. So a little bit messy from both of them. And it looks as if the gap has actually lengthened a tiny bit.
Yeah, I think Berto suffered a little bit more that time around, and the gap was slowly eking out as they made their way up the back straight there. But we may see it narrow once again as you go through these fast right-hand corners on their way towards clearways.
Well, since it's a little bit calm at the second, let's do something that Stairs likes to call a patented Apex rear wing stock take. So we've just got
a replay of something that happened at the back here with Tyrrell and Zalinger. So Tyrrell being at least two fighting for 13th position as it was, I think. So Tyrrell had just tried to make the move and he just ran really, really wide, overshot his braking mark and went straight into the fence there.
That's a shame. So Zalinger now up into 13th place. 15th man is that BMW, the Plus Fitness Racing BMW of Rody, which is still trundling along. So he's keeping that car on the road. Very well done to him. In 12th place, we have got Netherelmian, who is in the Nissan Primera, chasing after a fellow Nissan Primera, I think, of the Josh Bagsy Poker Racing Sweat car, which is only just ahead of him. Ahead of them, we've got Brenton Foley in 10th, down one position from his start. So not the race that Brenton Foley was looking to have tonight. Not so far anyway. Ahead of them, actually, we've got a little bit of a battle going on. We've got Sam Smith has the Tiger, the SO Tiger has found the gazelles of Roadhog and Decimage, and it is absolutely feasting upon them. It is overtaken Roadhog there. Sam Smith back up into 8th place after doing his recovery from the back of the grid. And Decimage looks like
in front. We've got some serious action for the battle for the lead here. They're touching on the run through. Sheens He almost shoves Ziras off to the side of the track there. And is he going to let him back through again? I don't think he is. So Berto's confident that was a fair pass, and he's going to hold on to first position there. I was just watching them through that whole last lap, and Ziras almost had a bit of a moment going through Druid. So he was really starting to crack under the pressure. And now Berto has slipped through. Ziras is just dipping the back end out through a few of these corners. We're just seeing a replay now of that pass as they go through Dingledale, and it's a really tricky place to get a car up the inside and to stick it there and to get a pass done, but he did well there, Berto.
He did very, very well. That's the definition of Rubbins racing. I think that was pretty fair. Neither of them really got punted or shoved in any untoward fashion, but now it's the challenge is on Ziras. Can he recover and can he mount a charge to take that first position back? So far this season, we haven't really seen him catching on Berto. It's been the other way around with Berto falling off the track. So now that Berto's ahead, can Ziras close in on the Renault?
Meanwhile, any chance that Resist had of catching up to Goofball Antics in fourth has been all but wiped out after he had a big moment through turn one there. He went well wide into the gutter, and he's into the gravel, I should say, and now he's over 10 seconds off the back of that car and almost under threat from Lewis Wedding. But just having a look at a replay now. So, yeah, he went really deep through that first Paddock Hill bend, which is a really tough corner to get your braking line for and to get the weight of the car nailed in the right parts of the car, and he just speared off into the gravel there. Hasn't lost any positions, but he's lost a lot of time.
So, to pick up on our stock take, we've got Roadhog and D-Samaj have now been devoured by the Tiger of Sam Smith, who is up into 7th place, still a position down on where he started, but he is slowly working his way up through the field. Next up the track is the Volvo of Lewis Redding in 6th place. Resist, as you were just saying, Matty, in 5th place. So where he started, probably after the race he's had, he'll probably be quite happy to finish in 5th. He's got a absolute paddock of 10.5 seconds up the road to Goofball Antics in 4th, which is where he started. And ahead of him in 3rd is Greg Turra, where he started. And then we're back at the front with Ziras and Berto in 2nd and 1st respectively, both where they started. So the top 5 all currently being very consistent with their qualifying times.
But don't let that fool you into thinking we're having a boring race here, folks, because we absolutely aren't. Some of the racing here has been absolutely fantastic, door-to-door, wheel-banging action, and we're just seeing now the benefits that Berto has reaped from some similar action against Ziras earlier a couple of laps ago. So he's now got a gap of 1.3 seconds at the front, so he's starting to eke out a bit of a gap, and I don't think Ziras is able to catch him. He may have worn through those tyres a bit, because you're placing a lot of load on those left-hand side tyres, especially when you're going through curves like Paddock Hill and Sheens and other places like that, and that can really reduce your grip when you're trying to carry speed through those corners in the latter stages of the race. So that gap has opened up a little bit now, and touch wood, but Berto's looking in a pretty safe spot to claim this race win.
Yeah, Ziras' chance was really to get the position off the start, which he did, and then just defend for dear life, which he also did, but turns out his dear life only lasted about 12 laps, so he is looking like he's going to be relegated, #relegated, to 2nd place. But we do still have the reverse grid race to come, which pays the same points as the main race. So still definitely half the night to play for. As we're watching Netherelmian and Josh Bagsy down in 11th and 12th respectively, having a bit of a tussle over that 11th place. Short Shift Motorsport podcast in the chat just saying broadcast looks amazing, guys. Great job. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Mate Stairs does an incredible job with the graphics and the race directing, or the race producing, the broadcast producing, whatever you call it. We've got Sam Smith looking to devour yet another gazelle of the Volvo, as I said earlier, of Lewis Wedding.
Geez, that Peugeot's been absolutely rapid. So if these two guys swap, so if Sam Smith passes into P6 and drops Lewis Wedding down, those two drivers will end up where they started the race as well, which would be quite interesting, I think. But we're just heading down the back straight now into these very fast right-hand curves. And Sam Smith, I don't know if he's going to find too many places to get past here, but he's going to try his absolute darndest. The gap is absolutely minimal between those two. So anything can really happen here. It's just a matter of finding the right space. Sam Smith's having a look up the inside now. He can't get that rear. He can't get that front bumper up on the inside of Lewis Wedding's rear. So they stay as they are at the moment in P6 and 7.
They do. Rob and Sue, if you're not on your feet, what are you doing with your lives? Your son is fighting for his starting position, and that'll be incredibly satisfying. I don't know whether to root for Lewis Wedding to keep the 6th position or for Sam Smith to put himself back where he started and thus Lewis back where he started. Berto has begun the last lap of this race. He's got a gap of 1.7 seconds over Ziras, and barring unforeseen events, Berto is looking like he is going to take out a win here at race 1 of season 9 of round 4. My goodness.
Some contact there between Sam Smith and Lewis Wedding. I think Sam Smith may have given Lewis Wedding just a little bit of a shove there as they go through the Druids hairpin, and he's been able to take that spot back from him. So Sam Smith up to P6 with Lewis Wedding down in P7. There was a little bit of contact, and Wedding in the Volvo there was just slid a little bit wide. We'll just see it on the replay here. I think there was just a touch. You can see Wedding trying to overcorrect there under braking. So that's allowed Sam Smith to go through, but this battle isn't over yet, folks. They're still very close as they make the run up into the forest.
Yeah, I reckon if Sam thought there was anything untoward about that, he would have handed it back. He is the definition, he is the human embodiment of karmic balance. And if he thought that he'd been a dick in any way, shape or form, he probably would have handed that back. At the front, sorry, Berto just crossing the line, but behind them, Goofball Antics has caught up oodles of time on Greg Turra. There's now a fight going through the last corner for 3rd place. Greg Turra well and truly off the track in the runoff. Goofball Antics sweeps through to take a 3rd place last step of the podium at the very death. And Greg Turra looking like a maiden podium in that Ovlov liveried Volvo. Oh, that is a damn shame. So no longer will the top 6 finish as they started. Thanks a lot, Greg and Goofball, for that one. Resist comes across the line to claim 5th place. Sam Smith is going to get the better of Lewis Wedding in the end. 6th and 7th respectively. Desamaj comes home in 8th place. Very well done. Roadhog in 9th. And Brenton Foley takes the final point paying position down in 10th. My goodness, what an end.
What an end. I think I may have placed the commentator's curse on Greg Turra when I said he was going to get his maiden. A 4th place finish is still his best finish yet so far in AK3 wing, so that is definitely an effort to be applauded. And also to Resist, who was able to come back from that massive crash in the front straight and finish in P5 where he started. So fantastic result there. And of course, to the top 3 drivers as well, Berto, Ziras and Goofball Antics, who will be appearing in the commentary box for interviews very shortly.
Yeah, that was, I can't believe that. I'm sort of in shock. That looked like I'd almost forgotten that Greg was in 3rd place because it seemed like such a foregone conclusion. But Matty, I think you have the man that was the beneficiary of his accident here in the box.
I certainly do. So I'm going to start with these interviews from P3. Goofball Antics. I think it's fair to say you weren't expecting to score that podium in the final corner of that race there. Maybe the final 2 corners, because you seem to catch up on Greg Turra very rapidly there in that final lap. What happened there?
A lot of luck. Yeah, a lot of luck. That's all I've got to say, I guess, as far as what happened. I basically, I saw coming out of Druids down the hill and around that left-hand turn, I saw that I'd caught up to Greg. I wasn't looking at the timing at all. I just, all of a sudden, he looked a lot closer than he did before. And I thought, oh, he's had a mistake. It'd be nice if he had another one. And then coming around the kink, he got a little bit loose again. And I thought, no, don't push the issue. It looks like he's under control. And I thought, oh, this is going to have to be, I can't lunge into the last turn. This is going to have to be he's going to have to go wide or something. And, lo and behold, there we go, the mind punch.
Well, you drove very well regardless, despite all the unfortunate incidents that Greg Turra suffered, to get that Alfa Romeo back up into the podium spot. So it's the 2nd podium so far this season. Do you like the look of your momentum so far going through the rest of the races?
Yeah, considering how I was feeling when I started practice tonight, this is really good. Greg does say to say hi to you guys, by the way. He should have been up here, but he's been detained. He's been delayed. But he said to say hi.
Well, hopefully he's out of gravel trap prison soon. Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Goofball Antics. We go now to our 2nd place winner, Ziras. Ziras, you had that race almost under control for the entirety of that first 3 quarters. And you had Berto, mind you, all over the back of your bumper, and it looked like he made a few attempts there before he finally was able to make the pass. A lot of bumping and grinding and rubbing and racing. It looked like a very fun time, mate, but well done to hold on to second place.
Oh, that was exhausting. No, I think Berto was faster, just straight up. So I'm glad I was able to keep him behind me for so long. So I made a choice at the start of the race to just not look at my mirrors or my timing and just keep going until he was like right up in there. So yeah, up there.
Once he was right up there in the final stages, he looked to have made at least one small area there into Druids when the back end got out and you gave him a little bit of room there. Is that something you're going to be wary of into the second race? Are you going to be absolutely 0% mirror policy in race two?
What happened there was I was too defensive on the corners before it, and I put myself into third instead of fourth where I shouldn't have, and so that gave him the edge, and then it was a bit dangerous through there, so glad we both made it out of that. As for race two, the plan is to get another good start and see where we go from there.
Well, best of luck to you, mate. Your start's been fantastic so far this season. I'm sure they'll be able to press on, and congratulations again on P2. We go now to Berto, our race winner. Well done, mate. You snatched that one of the death once again. You're able to convert that qualifying pace into some really strong race pace, and you're back on the top step of the podium. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. The pace is there, so happy with that. And that was a really good race. I'm exhausted.
Well, as I was saying earlier, you were bumping and rubbing and racing against Ziras in that latter half of the race there, and was putting on a fantastic show. Do you reckon you'll be able to keep that momentum up going through the field for the reverse grid race?
I hope so. The Renault doesn't get the greatest of starts, so I'm not sure we'll be that close in the second race.
Well, best of luck to you. As long as you stay out of trouble and be able to get some good lap times in, I reckon you'll do fine. And congratulations on the win once again. Thank you very much to all the top three drivers for joining us in the box.
Cheers.
Good work, Matty. Yes, well done to our podium sitters, even if it was a surprise for one of them at the very death. But regardless, fantastic racing, Matty. What did you think of the first race?
Well, as much as it started to peter out there and our producers in our ears trying to convince us this is boring with all the positions being filled by the cars that started in them, it was actually fantastic, especially between those front two guys, as I was saying, with the door-to-door racing. I just can't get enough of the door-to-door racing, Mad Bird. It's the best thing ever. And these cars are just so good at putting on a fantastic show for us. So if you're watching, stay tuned, because it's going to get even better and more chaotic for race two, a reverse grid race here at Brands Hatch.
That's it. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a short break, and when we get back, we'll be beginning the reverse grid race for tonight.
The origins of Brands Hatch as a racetrack can trace its way back to the 1920s, when a man called Ron Argent discovered a mushroom field on the site. The evidence suggests that Argent consumed a number of the most likely psychedelic mushrooms, because Argent arranged for Brands Hatch to be used for cycling, something only a psychedelically inebriated man would consider. Common sense prevailed shortly afterwards, however, as the circuit became renowned as a racetrack. Like many circuits in Britain, Brands Hatch had a military purpose during the Second World War, but given the undulating nature of the course, it was not good as an airbase, instead used as a military car park, which made it a target for bombing raids. In the meantime, the circuit acquired some terrific corner names, such classics as Druids, Dingledell, Clearways, and Pilgrim's Rise, among others. Sadly, my best Googling efforts couldn't uncover much in the way of interesting backstories behind these corner names, which disappointed me greatly, especially Pilgrim's Rise, which I was hoping was named as a result of some reckless driving due to a rush of blood to the head, and I don't mean the head on the man's neck.
Welcome back, everybody, to Season 9, Round 4 here at the Brands Hatch GP circuit. We've just had race 1, and we're getting ready for race number 2, a reverse grid race from the results of the first race. That sentence just kept on going, didn't it? I'm joined in the box by Matty. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, good to be back with you, folks. And I don't think we had any DNFs in that first race. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that would mean we've got a perfect reverse grid where every car finished race 1, and it will be a perfect mirror of the grid, which would put Rhodey on pole position for race 2.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be interesting to say the least. I imagine he will probably not fight that pole position too hard going into turn 1, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think we've got the entire Smith family watching in the comments because we've just had, hi, Uncle Sammy, Jude here, good luck next race. And Rob Smith, Sam Smith's father, just wondering whether we know the Tiger in the Tank reference. I believe it was an ad, wasn't it, for Esso? Because Esso is a motor oil of some description. So presumably you put a Tiger in your tank and it's a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wasn't around when those ads were running, but I do know that Esso was a partner of the Richmond Football Club back in the day, so I reckon there's a little bit of a play on the Tiger mascot there.
Well, let's hope that the Esso brand is not as, toothless and sour as the Richmond brand. But regardless, we're in we are in the warm-up session for the second race. That's super. I'm very sad that we don't have safety cars this season because that safety truck is resplendent sitting there in the pit lane. If only we got to see it trundle around.
If only. We'll have to put it on the list of things that we want to see in future ARW seasons. Just going to get another warm-up session underway. Another 10 minutes of practice starts and getting familiar with how things are here at Brands Hatch with the Super Tourer cars. And especially some of the guys who may not be as acquainted to having traffic to deal with in a race, such as Berto, Ziras, and a few of the other front runners. We'll have to get used to that for the reverse grid because they'll be starting plumb last.
Yeah, we've seen in the past that it doesn't seem to be too big of a... Berto's doing some practice starts, trying to weed out the issues he had in the first race where he basically just didn't move off the start. So that's not ideal, but he is definitely doing some practices there. We've seen in the past that him and Ziras seem to have very little trouble finding their way up through the field in the first lap of these reverse grids. Seem to find their way at the pointy end, usually by the end of lap 2 at the very latest, but I guess we'll have to see how it goes around here. Brands Hatch a lot tighter than the other tracks we've raced at.
I'm just having a look at Sam Smith at the moment as he goes around on his out lap to get familiar with his car. His fortunes, he's normally really up the front in terms of race position, but he dropped back quite a bit, partly because of a few unfortunate incidents, but also, I think, for 2 reasons. One, he hasn't been taking out any signs on his warm-up laps. It's just not the same Sam Smith. And 2, we haven't mentioned the carrot yet, have we, Mad Bird?
No, of course. The carrot that we must mention every single race while we watch him go around. If our producer wants to go back, there was a fantastic replay of an accident between Berto and several cars in the forest. But Sam Smith does operate a lot better with a carrot. And what do we mean by a carrot? Well, we don't mean an orange thing with green coming out of the top of it that grows in the ground. We mean something hanging in front of him for him to chase. So as we saw towards the end of the first race, he seemed to be just gobbling up all those runners that he was catching up on because he seems to race a lot better when he's got someone to hunt down and devour. Whereas once he's got some clear air, he just seems to... He doesn't slow down. He doesn't go off. He's not an egg pie. What? But he just doesn't seem to have the mojo that he has when he's got a car in front of him, Matty.
I tell you what, these similes and metaphors are going off like a bucket of prawns in the sun.
I've got to be honest. I feel like I might be dehydrated or something because I'm worse than I usually am. As we watch Berto, this was the accident I was talking about. Spears directly into Desamage, and then that's all fine. And then he manages to park it directly on the racing line, which then caused a huge accident for both Desamage, for both Greg Turra and Zarlinger. Good thing it's all in warm-up.
And of course, no damage carrying over from the warm-up to the race, so drivers are free to do basically whatever they please to get comfortable.
Can you imagine if everyone had to be as careful in practice that will carry over into the race session. They get nothing done.
Far too serious for my liking.
Absolutely. There are some there are some sim racing channels out there that like to put it all. He's had a clutch breakdown. That's why he's no longer in the race. Trying to act like it's all real racing, which I guess it is to a point. It is real sim racing, but it is a game, and that provides us with opportunities that we would not otherwise have, like having multiple people in a single location somewhere on the earth in June of 2020, which of course is a bit of a hairy subject at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Sim racing is becoming one of those sports, because you can't really call it an esport, that's really flourishing in the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen almost all professional motorsport leagues have been starting up esports series of their own, mostly to just keep fans busy, to keep the drivers with something to do as well, with some fan engagement, which has been great to see. It's produced some really exciting racing, and we here at Apex Rear Wing have been doing it for quite some time, showing all those big head honchos and supercars, Formula One, NASCAR, how it's done. And we're going to get ready to show them how it's done once again when we have this cracking race 2, this reverse grid race. It'll be a fantastic show, as it always is, and we've got just over 5 minutes left to go in this practice session. So we're just about halfway there, and I think the only car out on track, there's 2 cars out on track at the moment, Resist and Berto. And Berto is pulling into the pits now.
Berto's pulling into the pits.
And Resist is going very slowly, so I'm not sure how much longer he'll be out for. So we just have that Black Flag Industries Racing Honda Accord with the track all to himself.
Well, we've got a moment, good opportunity to hit that thumbs up on your screen if you're watching the stream. It does absolutely help, as well as flick us some messages in the chat. We love to hear from you. Hit the subscribe button, bash that bell so that you get notified whenever our streams go live. Hop over onto Facebook and like our page at Apex Rear Wing. Looks like we've gone through the warm-up session. They cut it off at 5 minutes this time, so going into race 2. They caught us out there a little bit. 16 laps, just over 60 kilometers, a reverse grid race using the reverse results from the first race. The previous Brands Hatch winner was the winner of race 1, eloquently put there by our producer Stairs. So the previous Brands Hatch winner was in fact Berto. Before that, it was Goofball Antics. Way back in, I believe, the Porsches we did this particular track in. So it's been a long time between drinks for Brands Hatch. 3.92 kilometers, 9 turns, mostly clockwise, and it is the GP circuit, so that extended circuit up through the forest, whereas the IndyCar one cuts itself short a little bit. Meanwhile, we've got all the cars gridding up and ready to go. Berto at the very back of the grid, as we would expect, and Rody, as you would not expect, on pole position. So they're all just finishing gridding up, and I will hand it over to you, Matty, to take us away.
So we've got the revs building for the warm-up lap, and we are away. So let's go through the grid positions as we make our way around the formation lap. Rody, in his first race back this season of Apex Rear Wing, is starting his second race, I should say his first round back, is starting his race from pole position, having finished 15th and last in the first race as a result of the reverse grid. Lining up next to him on the front row of the grid is Tyrrell in the Jeff Bader Racing Nissan Primera, which he seems to be a lot more comfortable with than the BMW, but he's still got a bit of work to do to crack into some more pace around this Brands Hatch circuit. Zarlingear in the Black Flag Industries Racing Honda Accord will be starting from P3 on the grid next to Josh Bagsy in that beautiful Coca Racing Sweat car that took me minutes to spit out, but I got it there eventually. Nether Elmin, who's been very successful in Apex Rear Wing in the past and also in all manner of sim racing, is starting from 5th in his Nissan Primera next to Brenton Foley, who is one of the fastest blokes on the track at the moment and really loves a bit of oversteer, loves to get that car sideways, but not so much this BMW. It's proving to be a little bit trickier for him, but we know he's fast. He's had a podium or 2 so far this season, so we know he's got pace, and he may be the best placed driver in this race to push up from the start and to get some good positions early on. Roadhog in the Audi, speaking of good starts, that all-wheel drive will be making a blistering start and probably getting past at least 2 or 3 cars before making it to turn 1. Behind him, We've got Decimage in the Pennison Oils car, the Peugeot, who had a good run in the first race, just keeping his nose out of trouble and just sticking to the road, and was able to pick up a couple of good spots there. So he'll be starting from P8 as a result. Lewis Wedding, making a wildcard appearance tonight, having finished well, will be starting from 9th after a good battle with Sam Smith towards the closing stages of the last race. Sam Smith himself will be starting from 10th position in the Tin Shed Racing Peugeot, with the Tiger in his tank trying to push him up to the front of the grid as quickly as he can. Resist behind him, having finished an incredible P5 in the last race after the big crash, will be starting down at 11th, so he knows how to recover from a bad start, and he should be able to do the same and push up as well. He'll be right behind Sam Smith. Behind him, we've got Greg Tara, who just narrowly missed out on his debut podium by sliding off the track. Speaking of sliding off the track, Decimage has gone sideways into the fence on the start line, and we've just seen him cross over there into the gravel pit. So Greg Tara will be starting from 12th position on the grid. Behind him in 13th is Goofball Antics, who finished 3rd on the podium once again this season. And the last two drivers having finished 1st and 2nd will be Ziras in 14th and Berto in 15th and plumb last on the grid. They're just forming up now. We're just waiting for the last few drivers to get into their positions. I think the grid is pretty much set. The revs are starting to build. The lights are on. And we're away. We're underway here at Brands Hatch, and it's a pretty good start from Rhodey at the front. Tyrrell's bogged it down massively, which has allowed a few of the guys to start swarming him. Oh, there's a bit of a biff and barge there. I think everyone seems to be nice and tidy at the moment. Rhodey is still leading the way through turn 1, so he gets the whole shot. But Brenton Foley, as I said, is already up to 2nd position, and the Picari sweat car of Josh Baggs is off in the background as well, so he's lost a lot of time. And Brenton Foley has gone through to take the lead at turn number 2.
Yeah, so he's taken that position away from the other BMW of Rhodey, and Tyrrell still in 3rd place, so keeping his nose out of trouble. I was a bit worried that he'd get swarmed going into that first corner, and as you said, Josh Baggs having a bit of an accident coming out of the first corner as wound up down in 14th place. But at the moment, everyone seems to be nice and tidy. It looks almost like a formation lap, although this is a very odd formation. There's people all over the place. It's very hard to see what's going on. Sam Smith all over the outside of the track. This is a big gaggle from Rhodey down through to, as we see, looks like the front bumper of the Lewis Wedding Volvo went flying.
Yeah, it almost looked like Lewis Wedding was going to get punted off the track there, but he's kept it on the black stuff. And we still have a full field of cars on the track here, duking it out. Tyrrell made his way up into 2nd place briefly, but Sam Smith has slingshotted a lot of them and is up into P2 at the moment with a gap of just over 2 seconds up to Brenton Foley up ahead. So Rhodey, our pole position starter, has already fallen down to 7th position and is now under threat from our championship leader, Ziras.
Gotta say, apart from Josh Baggsy, and that appeared to just be him spinning himself, that's possibly the cleanest reverse grid start that we've had so far this season. So very well done to everybody as they cross the line to start the 2nd lap. Brenton Foley getting all out sideways going through the first corner, but looks like he was in control of that particular slide. And Tyrrell losing out that 3rd position to Lewis Wedding, who he's no stranger to pole positions, not pole positions, podium positions. He is now sitting up in 3rd place. Ziras already up into 7th, so 7th position's up from where he started. His meteoric rise continues.
I think something's happened to Greg Tara in that opening lap as well. He may have had a brief off because he's down in 15th and last at the moment, so he's having a shocking start, and he's just really struggling to get through some of the cars at the back there. He's trying to go around the outside of Roadhog at the moment, and he's dipped a couple of wheels in the grass, so he's still stuck down in 15th at the moment. So hopefully we can start seeing Greg Tara pushing up a little bit further, but maybe not for a little while yet. At the moment, we've got Brenton Foley still leading the way with a gap of 1.5 seconds over Sam Smith.
Berto just making the position over Decimage. Zarlinger well and truly off the track, but Berto got up the inside of Decimage, coming down and into Dingledale, so he's up into 7th place on the back of Ziras. So the race, the 2 race leaders from the previous race struggling a little bit more than they have previously to find their way up through the field around this tight Brands Hatch circuit. Ziras just made the position up into 5th ahead of his brothers Resist. And I wonder if there's a little bit of sibling collusion there. Is he going to say, now, Resist, you just hold up Berto a little bit. You keep him well and truly behind you, please.
Oh, he's around in 1st place. Spin in the pit at turn 1, and Sam Smith has taken the lead. Brenton Foley's losing a lot of spots now. He's down into 9th position. 8th position as it stands. He's about to lose 9th, I think. He is.
Yeah, that is the damn shame. I wasn't. Oh, there's Berto's on his roof! Berto's on his roof coming out of the Druid's hairpin. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure who that was that made contact with him. And Roadhog, having a huge accident, has crashed into him as well and has lost many parts of his car. Goofball is also around as
up here as well.
Berto is DNF'd. Berto is out of this race. So that is a damn shame. I'll be interested to see a replay of what happened there exactly. I cut to it just as you were screaming about it. And yeah, that was, my goodness.
So that is music to the ears, championship-wise at least, of Ziras, who now has probably a 15-point buffer as a result of this race alone. So the gap is going to be widening quite a bit. There's really a lot of biff and barge through Druids that time around, wasn't there? So Berto was just sort of knocked wide, got touched by Decimage there and sent over onto his roof. And a lot of the field tries to get past, but Roadhog just nails the front of him there. Catches Goofball Antics and Zarling Gear in the process with a bit of a domino effect. So a chaotic start. I knew when you said that was the cleanest start we've had to reverse grid race so far. I knew there was going to be trouble, mate.
I shouldn't have said anything, but it'll be music to the ears of the Smith clan. Oh, never mind! I shouldn't have said anything again! Sam Smith off the track at turn 1. He's going to recover. He's going to hold on to that first place, but his advantage over second place man Lewis Wedding is going to be much reduced. I should just stop speaking altogether. I was about to say music to the ears of the Smith clan as their boy Sam is in the lead, but he is still in the lead, just at a much reduced amount. So we've got a replay here of Brenton Foley having his accident, so just all out sideways through the first corner. Happened to him on lap 2, but he managed to hold on to it, that time less so, and it was actually not too bad an accident. He recovered it pretty well, but since it was so early in the race, the field was still so packed together.
So who's next on your hit list, Madbird?
I'm not sure. It can't be Roadhog because we've missed him DNFing as well with damage. So not good for him. We've got a replay here of Sam Smith. No, we don't have a replay. Sorry, we're just watching Sam Smith going through Dingledell and Sheens. So at the moment, no, never mind. I'm not going to say it. You can see Ziras in the background there, just lurking, looking for a win in the absence of Berto. And I didn't even get a chance to talk about the accident with Berto, which I was going to talk about. And, so that's why Goofball got turned around. He got clipped by both Roadhog and Zarlinger. I was going to say, I'm not sure if Berto had any contact or if he just... I have a feeling he might have done it to himself, gotten out of shape on the entrance into Druids. Looks like he was well and truly on the inside. And then it's a hairpin. It's pretty hard for cars to see what's happening coming out of it. Just unlucky to be collected by a couple of different cars.
Well, Brenton Foley's currently made his way back up to P6. He's having a lunge up the inside of Decimage now. He locks the brakes into the Druid's hairpin, but he's got the move done. Brenton Foley's up into P5, so that's a great return to where he started for Brenton Foley in the PBF BMW. He's sliding all over the place now, trying to keep that Peugeot 406 behind him.
Oh, it is a Peugeot. Do apologise. Brenton Foley's
only got about... touch confidence as well.
Yeah. He's, I just recall him saying that Peugeot drivers would now be Great Wall drivers, which is why he's got the Great Wall stickers on there. And they also like the Herald Sun, hence the Herald Sun sponsorship. So Brenton Foley now looking forwards to that fourth position that Resist is currently occupying, about 1.8 seconds up the track. Sam Smith at the front is continuing to hold on to that first position, and I will speak no more about him. Lewis Wedding right on his tail though, and Ziras still about 2.4 seconds back in third position, but still looking good for a good finish in this race.
Yeah, that gap at the front between Sam Smith and Lewis Wedding has been pretty consistent. We go to a replay now of Roadhog suffering his damage, so he just really nailed the front of Berto there and speared straight up into the fences. Lewis Wedding posts the fastest lap, quickly usurped by Ziras with a 132.386. So we know Ziras is the fastest man on track at the moment. He's just got a gap of around about 2.1 seconds to claw back. Meanwhile, Lewis is all over the back bumper of Sam Smith at the front there. The gap between those two is academic as they go through the Graham Hill bend. Lewis Wedding is locking the brake ever so slightly, just trying to find an in. Just trying to find a little bit of a gap on the inside that he can jump and take advantage of. He's having a peek at the end of the Indy circuit, but he can't get anything done there. Almost shoots it a little bit wide, and Sam Smith will take advantage of that to hopefully get a good run up the back straight.
That Volvo is the most powerful of the cars, so it does have a very powerful horse under that bonnet. I'm not sure how many horses exactly, but they're bloody strong. They're Clydesdales, and he's showing at the moment that it has got a little bit more straight line pace than the Peugeot, but the Peugeot seems to be capable of just holding onto its lead through those corners. It's a little bit more planted, similar to the comparison between the BMW and the Renault that we were making through most of the first race.
As a matter of fact, the Volvo has 25 more horsepower than the Peugeot, with the Volvo having 315 horsepower to the Peugeot's 290. So there is a drastic difference there between the two. It's just a matter of whether you can get past and actually find some track position to make a gap and make a run on the car that you're trying to pass. So
speaking of getting past,
we're having a battle at the back here between Desamaj and Brenton Foley, if that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, so Brendan Foley must have lost that position at some stage, because it wasn't too long ago we were talking about how he just made the position over Desamaj. So he must have had a bit of a as he's off in the, he probably had a little one of those. Come to think of it, and lost the position to Desamaj. He's now lost the position to Greg Turra, possibly. Looks like he has. Greg's gotten up the inside at the hairpin.
So Greg's recovered pretty well from his average start, so he's up into P6 now, 6 spots from where he started in 12th. So great run from Greg Turra, looking to make the most of the relatively clear area he's got in front of him now. We do have a third DNF, and that is Tyrrell, who has made his way back to the garage. So we have 12 cars running on track now.
Yeah, not sure what happened there. It was a couple of laps ago, I reckon. It was on lap 4 indeed, so it was last lap. Not sure what happened, but possibly just some damage. There was I probably shouldn't have said anything about clean starts. I should probably just not say anything. I should just stand here and just nod and go when things happen, because if I say something, apparently it's immediately going to curse the individual I'm speaking about.
Well, I'm hoping that I don't get too many commentators' curse incidents happening to me this race, because otherwise that would throw my credibility as a commentator right out the window. But if we go back to the battle for first position at the moment, Ziras is caught right up onto the back of Lewis Wedding, so this is a 3-car battle for the lead. Mind you, Sam Smith is pulling a gap of almost a second back to Lewis Wedding. It's 9/10 as it stands at the moment, but that's coming down as they break into turn 2 here at Druids. So Ziras is all over the back of that Volvo like a cheap suit, just trying to find a way through.
Yeah, I think it was Ziras a couple of weeks ago who was struggling to overtake Greg Turra in the Volvo, and he said after the race that the Volvo is bloody hard to overtake because of those extra couple of horses it's got. If any man can do it, it's Ziras. But any amount of time that Volvo can hold up that BMW is music to the ears of the Peugeot of Sam Smith ahead. Hope the Sam clan are on their feet. And I said I'd say no more about him. I will now say no more about him until the very end of the race. Resist is in 4th still, but he's a long way behind this battle between Lewis and Ziras. Lewis doing a good job on his, considering he wasn't really anywhere in the first race or in qualifying, but he seems to have come alive in this reverse grid, and he's putting on a very good job defending that position.
Yeah, he's gotten used to the Volvo very quickly, and he's now really been able to take it to Sam Smith and Ziras at the front here very well. He's only got a little bit more power than the BMW packing 307 horses to the Volvo's 315, so they're about evenly matched on the straights, with Ziras having the benefit of the draft as well. So Lewis's ability to defend there in second place is really paying dividends, not only to him but also to Sam Smith.
Yeah, he seems to be just a little bit more planted, the Volvo. It might just be Ziras's driving style, but he seems to be flicking the tail out going through pretty much every corner, whereas the Volvo is a lot more... as he puts on he just shows exactly what I was talking about there. Swinging the tail out and getting it right out sideways. A little bit deep there from Lewis. Ziras senses an opportunity but thinks better of it. Further back, we've got a battle developing between Desamaj in 5th, Greg Turra in 6th, and Brenton Foley in 7th. So that's a tight little scrap as well.
Yeah, so I'd hazard a guess and say Desamaj has made a little bit of an error there, because he had quite a bit of a gap on those 2 cars behind him. And now they've caught up onto the back of what is now a 3-car train with Greg Turra sandwiched in the middle. So this will be a test of what he can do, whether he can make up some more of those positions and get any higher up in this race. But Brenton Foley is looming large behind them in his BMW. Speaking of BMWs, Ziras is going up the inside of Lewis Wedding, or at least trying to, on the run down into clearways, but Lewis Wedding still has the line, he still has a position, and he will not be passed this time around. Maybe there'll be a move racing. Fantastic racing from these two here at the moment, and there won't be a move through the final corner, but Ziras may try and get a good run, but we have seen those rear-wheel drive BMWs have been really tricky for these drivers to get comfortable with, especially in terms of getting good power onto the ground out of these fast corners. Meanwhile, we go back to Brenton Foley. He's pulled off onto the side of the track and stopped.
Yeah, it looks like he's had a spin coming around the last corner and has ended up in the pit lane. Not the first time he's done that accidentally, but he is now down into 7th place as we see. Whoa, that was interesting. So not sure if that was some sort of game glitch. That looked like a bit of lag or something that suddenly shot him across the track. And then he sat still for a couple of seconds as well, like he was quickly fixing something. So, but at the front, Lewis and Ziras are side by side on the run down towards Hawthorne Bend. Ziras has the line and Lewis thinks better of trying to challenge into Hawthorne Bend and tucks in behind. So that Lewis has lost that position to Ziras, but he is not giving up on it. He's still right behind that BMW.
Great racecraft from both of those two guys there, especially for Ziras to get up into 2nd position. And now is the test to see what Lewis Wedding can do in that Volvo sitting behind Ziras. Now that he's got the draft down these long straights, especially down into clearways, which will be the next one in the latter half of the circuit, in the 3rd sector as they cross the split now, gets a little bit of a tyre into the dirt there, and that's going to compromise his run down clearways. So that's going to open up the gap to about 0.7 of a second. So they're all starting to peter out just a little bit at the front. Lewis Wedding dips a couple of wheels into the dirt once again, and that just isn't doing any favours for him there. So maybe he's just been a little bit caught out by Ziras there in that overtake, and now he's just trying to get a grip on the car. He's sliding a little bit through turn 1 there, and he's just losing time here and there, and he's already a second down on Ziras.
Yeah, you can see Ziras here just showing the replay of him getting up the inside at Surtees. Beautifully done. Very, very well done to hold on to that line through that corner with the BMW. And then he had a little bit more pace all the way down the long Pilgrim's Drop straight, and Lewis had to duck in behind. So that is how the man got the job done. Can he now get 1st place done? Sam Smith 0.7 up the road from him. The battle behind them for 5th place has fizzled a bit. Looks like Desamaj has had an accident, as has Brenton Foley, as we saw. Greg Turra now sitting in 5th, about 4 seconds ahead of Desamaj behind, and about 6 seconds behind Resist in front. So 7 positions up from where he started. Good reverse grid race for Greg Turra.
Yeah, I was having a look at the replay when we were trying to figure out what happened to Brenton Foley, and just before on the run down in clearways, Desamaj had a pretty bad run as well and dipped off into the dirt. And now we're seeing Ziras at the front getting very, very close to Sam Smith. That gap has been closed up rapidly. So those two are going to start battling for the lead very soon now. Ziras is trying to get to the slipstream of that Peugeot as they run down into clearways into the Clark curve, the final curve of the track. And we'll have 5 laps to go this time by as they cross the start-finish line. And this is going to be a cracking battle for the lead. So as we were saying earlier, Greg Turra doing really well in 5th position to make the fastest lap. Fastest lap 131.6 from Ziras, who tries to have a look up the inside in the Paddock Hill bend. He can't get anything done there, and he's a bit too far back to do anything at Druids.
Yeah, this is... I'm not going to be able to avoid speaking about him anymore. Sam Smith has got Ziras all over the back of him, and that Peugeot just does not have the pace on the straights compared to the BMW. It does seem a lot more planted in the corners, but Sam Smith just... it is Ziras now that has the famous carrot, and that carrot looks very much like an Esso Tiger and Michelin Man as he is following that Peugeot down Pilgrim's Drop. So can Sam put on a defending masterclass and hold Ziras off for the remaining 5 laps of this race?
He's driving the wheels off that BMW at 110%. He got really sideways on the exit of Surtees there on the run up Pilgrim's Drop, or down Pilgrim's Drop, I should say. And he's really getting really confident with the back end of that car and just managing that oversteer. And that's showing in how close he is to the back of Sam Smith. Obviously, he does have a little bit more power under his belt, of course, But Sam Smith is doing a fantastic job of defending, and Ziras at this point is just swarming all over the back of him. He may even have a look now. He's having a peek around the outside as they run down to the Clark curve. I don't think there's anything doing there. He's switched back to the inside to try and have a little bit of a sneaky crisscross, but Sam Smith will successfully block Ziras at least for one more lap. They cross the line to start lap 13. There are 4 laps to go.
Yeah, none of these straights are quite long enough, with the possible exception of Pilgrim's Bend, for that BMW to really, really stretch its legs. So if Sam can just nail every corner as he locks that particular door and throws away the key at Druid's hairpin, if he can just nail every corner and block every apex, then he runs a good chance of being able to keep ahead of Ziras for the remaining run of this race. Ziras seems to have a much better run out of Sheens at the end of the forest section before the left-hander of Sterling's, so keep an eye there. I reckon he might try to have a go into Sterling's before the race is out.
So they're making their way down Pilgrim's Drop once again, and a little bit of a gap is starting to open up, about a half a second between Sam Smith and Ziras, and that may even maintain through these fast corners that the Peugeot and the other front-wheel drive cars are so strong at. We have an incident further back in the grid.
Yes, sorry,
we've got Josh. He's spun around.
He's had it looks like Goofball Antics tagged him going into the turn 1. Goofball is slowing right down to presumably redress the position, so that's a shame. They were having a good little tussle, and just Goofball Antics. Bagsy was already spinning a little bit, I think, and it was a bit half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, not 2 of the other, as I've said previously.
Oh, back in the front, Ziras and Sam Smith are side by side for the final turn. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No,
but
please.
Getting really, really close, and Lewis Wedding is almost trying to capitalise here. He's still floating around the back here. Ziras having a look around the outside into Paddock Hill Bend. Can't get anything done. He's trying to quick on the inside on the exit, and they're side by side on the run up the hill to Druids. There's just a little bit more space, but Ziras is bumping and barging there, and he's just snuck through at the moment. Lewis Wedding's almost trying to follow Ziras through, but Sam Smith still has position. He still has the line, and he, at this stage, is going to lead through the Graham Hill Bend as they run down the Cooper Straight. But Lewis Wedding is all over the back of Ziras. He's trying to get past him on the run to Surtees. This is incredible stuff. Sam Smith still maintains a good gap into Surtees now, and Ziras is just trying to keep that car in one piece, trying to keep it on the straight and narrow, and Lewis Wedding is licking his lips, trying to make his way up into the higher echelons of that podium.
Absolutely. Ziras looking for the inside at Hawthorne Bend. That's never going to happen. That'll always be an airplane crash, and he thinks better of it. But then again, I would have thought that at turn 1 as well, and he still did it. So they go now through Westfield Bend and down into Dingle Dell, and you can see how close behind Ziras is through these corners. And it's, I reckon, out of Sheens here. I reckon he's got a chance into Sterling if he tries to duck for the inside, but he doesn't quite have the pace here. And Lewis Wedding all over the back of these two. If they have any little tussles, as we saw at Druids, which they did, then he will be all over the back of them looking to claim a second or even a first. And wouldn't that be something?
Knowing Ziras, I reckon he's already got his final move planned out as he blocks really defensively on the inside because he knows Lewis Wedding's got a great run around the outside. Lewis Wedding's almost going to have a look here as Ziras tries to look up the inside of Sam Smith. They all still maintain line astern. We've got 2 laps to go, and as I was saying, I really think Ziras has a move in mind to get past Ziras, to get past Sam Smith at the front, but that's dependent on whether or not Lewis Wedding gets past him as well, because Lewis Wedding is on a charge, driving absolutely aggressively, just trying to get past that purple and green BMW in front of him.
Yeah, I reckon takes Lewis Wedding out of this equation, and Ziras is going to be a lot more bold. As it is, if he slips up just a tiny bit, he's not going to only not take first, he's going to lose second. He's all over the back of Sam Smith. A huge run down Pilgrim's Drop towards Hawthorne Bend. Is he going to keep it up the inside? Is he going to keep it up the inside? No, he thinks better of it, lifts out just a little bit. And they're both wide, both very wide. Lewis Wedding sweeps up the inside. Lewis Wedding is in the lead of this race. Sam Smith tucks in behind, a little bit of contact as they head through Dingle Dell, and Ziras is right behind him. You can throw a blanket over these 3 cars.
All aboard the Lewis Wedding train. He is shot up into the lead as a result of those 2 offs in front of him, and those 2 cars are absolutely glued onto the back of each other, and we've got a 3-car train for the battle for the lead here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm yelling in case you've turned this down in the background so you can get your ass back to this broadcast and turn it up, because this is one of the most cracking ends to a race I have seen in quite some time. Ziras is now down in 3rd position having fallen back behind Lewis Wedding, of course, and is trying to make his way still past Sam Smith. He has a look into Peckhill. Ben, you can't make the pass happen there. There's a little bit of a slide. He's almost going to make it happen. Sam Smith still has a position, but Ziras has a little bit of a run. Is he going to try and lunge again in Druids? No, he's not. He's running a little bit wide even. So Lewis Wedding is able to pull a little bit more of a gap. He's 0.6 of a second up at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything in the context of what we're seeing here. It is the last lap of the race. Ziras is right up alongside Sam Smith on the run to Surtees. He's going to try for another pass here one more time, and that one's pretty cleanly done. A little bit of biff and budge, but he's up into second place, Madbird.
Absolutely. So that was definitely rubbing and racing there. Sam Smith down into third place, and Ziras now setting off after the first place man of Lewis Wedding, and they've just by fighting, although they've gifted it to Lewis, although they didn't really have an option. Both of them wanted that second place, and Sam Smith, who was at this stage last lap in first place, now looking like he's going to be in third place coming across the line. An incredible sight here as we've got this beautiful helicopter shot of the three cars winding their way through the forest. Ziras just going for the outside at Sterling. He's going around. Is he going to make it? Sorry, he's got it. He's still up the inside as they're going to head down into Clark Bend on the last corner. Sam Smith looking to pick up the scraps if they have a tussle. And they're sideways a little bit. Sam Smith tucks up the inside. He's right up alongside Lewis Wedding. Coming in, they're barging all the way down the start-finish line. Lewis Wedding's going to win this race.
Unbelievable finish. I've never seen a finish like that in Apex Rear Wing. That was absolutely incredible. Lewis Wedding on his wildcard appearance wins race 2. Only fractions of a second ahead of Sam Smith and Ziras, who are both trying to make lunges and challenges there. That was, I'm at a loss for words. That was unbelievable.
0.118 of a second between Lewis Wedding and Sam Smith as they cross the line. Half a second back to Ziras, but that doesn't tell the story of how close that end was. Resist came across the line in the end in fourth place, so very well done to him, up 7 places from where he started. Greg Turra finishing in 5th place, so very well done to him. Desamaj in 6th. Brendan Foley just coming across the line just now to finish in 7th, with Zarlinger in 8th. Very good points for him. Goofball Antics with a adventurous, let's say, race is going to come home to finish 9th, and Nether Realman going to come across the line to claim the last championship point for this particular race. Matty, I think I hurt my throat.
Yeah, you and me both, buddy. I was just... that was... I got very loud at the end of that race for good reason as well. That was the tightest podium battle I've seen in such a long time. And Madbird, you better get a Strepsil on you to go so you can get interviewing, because you've got those 3 podium sitters in the box with you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Ziras, well done on 3rd place, mate. It looked like it was going to be 1st place for the briefest of moments, and then yourself and Sam went wide in the forest section, and Lewis sprung on the opportunity. How did you find that race? Looked like an absolute belter.
It was so much fun. Oh my god. It's hard to describe what was happening because there was a position attempt every other corner. So, no, I think Lewis judged it well. He let me by and catch up to Sam, and then I made probably a stupid dive on the inside up through the hill, and so I just lost all my speed on the exit, and that's how Lewis got by, and then it was just I couldn't find a way past Sam, so it was awesome.
Very well done. Do you think that did the BMW have the pace to overtake that Peugeot, or is it looks like a pretty balanced track? There's not too much long straights for the BMW to stretch its legs, and the corners they're pretty quick corners that the Peugeot and the Renault of Berto seem to be hooked up pretty well in. So quite a balanced track.
Yeah, it is. I think through the 3rd sector, I was fastest over Druids, but everywhere else it was sort of on par or worse. Like especially on the brakes again, the Beamer just sucks on the brakes. So. And I was bogging actually up the back straight as well, bogging it, and that made it a bit tougher. But yeah, good race.
Fantastic. Silverstone GP circuit next week. Looking forward to it?
Sure.
Good stuff. Some strong opinions on Silverstone from Ziras. Congratulations on your third place and a cracking race, Ziras. On to second place man Sam Smith, who was looking to be first place man Sam Smith for the longest time during that race. You've got the entire Sam clan, as I dubbed them in the chat, rooting for you, mate. And then all happened in the last 2 laps. Tell us about your race, mate.
Well, I'm pretty sure we were doing 32s with me on that lap, on that race.
Yeah, it wasn't the quickest laps I've ever seen in my life, but...
So 2 seconds lower than usual, so I was an absolute brick doing nothing. And I knew Ziras would come, and I was just trying to do all the blocking that I see Nether do and Stairs was doing when he used to race. I was using all the techniques, and I was doing it quite well. I didn't get off the track at all. I didn't expect Lewis to catch up again, and then when he got past, oh my goodness, what an end. And that little dive up in the last corner.
Yeah, it looked like you were going to be able to sweep up the inside and take that first place at the very death.
If it was a real British touring car race, I probably would have flicked Lewis and put him into the wall and just first. But repercussions in a lip doesn't work out so well.
Absolutely. Fantastic race, mate, and very, very well done. It can't be too long until you're on the top step of the podium in these cars, can it?
It's a long way off. It's only work if those guys have some sort of issue and get stuck on the second race. I'm literally a second and a half off every race, which is a bit annoying, but anyway.
I mean, as you showed during the reverse grid race just then, doesn't necessarily mean that you can't keep them behind you, so...
Sneak through. I'm fine, but yeah, anyway, they've got to get stuck, and Berto's got to get stuck, and everyone's got to get stuck. But anyway, it's good fun.
Good fun, mate. Well, at least you didn't describe this race as boring, so I guess we can consider that a win.
But I'm sure Silverstone will be, because it's a terrible track.
That saves me asking that particular question. Thank you very much, Sam, and congratulations to you and the entire Sam clan. Sue Smith just in the chat saying, yay, great race. Love the entire Sam clan. Winner of the race, and I didn't even realize you were going to be racing tonight until I hopped in Discord and you were here, Lewis. But congratulations, mate. Very, very well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty late call. I normally do some other stuff on Wednesday nights. Had a free night, and I was like, I did enjoy the couple of streams that I've seen so far, and I was like, yeah, I'll try and get in. And it was a blast.
Fantastic. That Volvo looks like it has some pretty powerful horses under the bonnet. Did you have the measure of the BMW for the most part, or were you a little bit slower?
Top speed wise, I think I maybe had a K or two over it. It was all about really getting the exit out of that the left-hander there at turn 4 or 5 there. But for the most part, yeah, the Volvo had some quite good legs. I did test a couple cars and it seemed to be the quickest, but I was also the most comfortable in it, so I decided to race that one. And in the end, that extra K might have saved my bacon there on that last lap.
Absolutely. Were you just we sort of, not to say we counted you out, but once you fell down into third, we kind of were focusing much more on Sam and Ziras, and didn't even realise that you were still sort of sneaking your way back up there like a cheeky mouse. And if suddenly the opportunity presented itself and the seas seemed to part and you just swept through, did you think that all your Christmases had come at once at that particular moment?
I did, but at the same time, I knew there was still 2 laps to go. I was like, oh no, it's happened too early. and they're going to get back past me with, I think, the last 2 laps. But that was my plan. I was sticking behind Sam there. I was only just sort of hanging on there, about 9 tenths off, and just sort of fluctuating between 9 tenths and 1.1. I had Ziras behind and figured he's a little bit faster. And at worst, I'm probably going to get third, which I certainly didn't expect coming into tonight and going through practice. And then, was hoping, let him go by and catch up to Sam in front. Hope they battled and bring me back into it, and then we'll see what happens. And with a couple laps to go, I saw Ziras make a move that's up the inside at the top of the hill there, and I was like, this is it. It's going to happen. And it did happen, and I only just got by, but from then on, it was all about just not stuffing up an exit and holding on for dear life.
Absolutely. Well, very well done. Considering your success tonight, do you think you'll join us in future?
Well, if I get the time to, if I have a free Wednesday, I'll certainly jump in when I can, because that was really, really fun.
Absolutely. We'll be very happy to see you if you do hop in. Congratulations to all our podium sitters. Very well done, and especially to Lewis for his wild card win. Matty, what a bloody night of racing, mate.
What a bloody night of racing indeed. That was... Oh, I can't wait for next week. And you've just heard at least 2 drivers talk about how Silverstone's an awful track. But you don't need a good track for these cars to put on a good show. And Silverstone's a great track on its own anyway. So...
Yeah, just like Monte Carlos are a great biscuit.
Oh, I'd say Kingston's a number 1 in that department, but that's a debate for another time. Viewers, please feel free to weigh in. Head to the Apex Rear Wing Facebook page. We'll set up a poll pretty soon. Kingston's or Monte Carlos, which is the superior biscuit? We know the superior form of sim racing on the internet right now is Apex Rear Wing, and that race just goes to prove it, doesn't it, Madbird?
Absolutely. We had battles like crazy at the end of both races, with a surprise 3rd position for Heathy in the first race, and a surprise entire podium. We didn't know who was going to get what position. They could have raffled them off, and at one point you could have probably put a band-aid over all 3 cars for the podium, but it was absolutely intense. That's about all for us. We will see you around, well, about 2 hours ago next week, on Wednesday the 1st of July for the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. That'll be round 5. I've been Madbird. I've been joined by Matty.
I've been Matty, and I've been joined by some very lovely viewers, and also thank you very much to Stairs, our producer in the box, as well. We will see you all next week, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. See you then.